here to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you were here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man.
MH.
Yes, he is the DB of the show, and we are Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here, man, we're bringing you back inside the locker room where we're talking about topics in and around the game. MH, you ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. So today, man, it's kind of kicking it off. It's still fresh. We're talking about media versus athletes, right? That good old beef. Let's say, what's beef? Quoting the illustrious Biggie there. Man, I just think that just kind of coming into this conversation, man, it's just it started. It's been a part of the game, I guess, since the game started, right? And I mean, we could even jump back to like Yankees manager Billy Martin, right? Like he threw a punch at a reporter, right? You got Heisman Trophy winner, man. I was just looking at his Life of Football, and just remember Ricky Williams, right? The homeboy used to do interviews with his helmet on. Yeah. So it just kind of like the turmoil, man. We Showtime. What was the show that you had to get me on board with? The Showtime Lakers back in the day, and they just talked
Winning Time.
Yeah, winning times, man. And so how Cap, just really was how he had this kind of thing with the media. He wasn't feeling it, man. So it's been a part all through, right? Even Russell Westbrook, and we're talking about the OKC Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
But even his bouts, right? Like he had with the media was, he's like giving you those simple locker room answers. He's like, no, man, I just don't like you.
Right.
It's been through time, man. And then so like, of course, in common days, what brings us to this is just the LeBron and Stephen A. Smith beef that's just kind of currently, I think it's died out, but it's
had its course.
It's had its course. You know what I mean? But that's just kind of bringing us why we had to bring this topic up. So I'm excited to jump into kind of what the media is doing or just kind of maybe what's going around with media. And not to forget, we are in media. So we touched a little bit about this on the intro show last week. So make sure if you haven't seen that, jump into that. But just, man, the change of media, I think, is a really big reason for this, right? Like the media landscape has changed throughout all these years, but beef is still beef, man.
For sure. And I think, to your point, I think the conversation around sports and everybody's opinions on it, everybody's there's a lot of fans, and I think that's always been a part of the game. From when I used to get haircuts, I can remember, barbershop conversations about who's what and who's not. And, the way social media has allowed us to put those conversations just on wax and then even tag the people that we're talking about in those conversations. I think the chatter has just maybe been intensified now. And, now it's more, I think it's turned from just covering the game from a real facts, situation or, facts oriented. Now it's more about your opinion about it too. And so I think there's natural friction when it comes to competitors and competition on both ends. But honestly, the conversation around the game makes the game what it is in some ways too, right? I mean, we can watch the games on mute, or we can watch the games with, the commentary and their opinions about what they saw. It's our choice as consumers of the product. But a lot of times we watch the game with audio because we like to hear the chatter around the game and the conversations that happen with the game. So I just think it, they always say it's chalking up to a part of the game. I really believe that's a part of the game in some ways, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where you can't have one without the other, right? Like it's a necessary evil at this point. Because, definitely when you're at the games, and I know I found myself, I guess I'll speak for you personally, is you're at the game and something's going on and you don't have that announcer or that media person saying like, oh, sideline reporter, what are you getting? You know what I mean? Like, and then you'll be watching like, oh, such and such ain't been on the field in a while. Like, what happened, right? So, like, there's elements of that game that, when you're not at the live sporting event that, just television has brought, which is part of that media. So I definitely agree with you on that. And then that second point, or I didn't know if it's second, but I would just say the access, right? I was cracking up because you know you can Joe Smo in your mama's basement right now can really go at somebody and they can see it. I don't know how some people are, and we'll get to some tender people probably give a little bit of a preview what we're going to do later in the show, but
Yeah.
you can get directly at them. So I do think that access is really one of those big things.
Yeah. And I also think there's part of where the athlete is in their career um, that allows certain chatter to affect them more than others, right? And I think there's some, I think there's some real reasons beyond just LeBron being irritated or his son being involved that he actually, has responded to Stephen A. or whoever in the recent times. I think that has a little bit to do with where the stage he is in his career too. I just think from a very very ex athlete, I can see how that can happen.
Yeah, definitely, right? Like I'm the king, man. You can't come at the king like that, right? Like
I don't even think it's that, bro. I mean, I think it's that, but I think it's a little bit of if there's a little piece of I ain't got it where I used to. Here's an example, bro. Here's an example. Time to time, I still try to play in adult league basketball stuff, right? And nothing bothers me more in life outside of basket or people that play basketball that think they're really good, but you're not that good. See, but when I was in my prime, I could physically, combat those emotions, right? I could physically say so. As I get older, I'm like, yeah, he's not that good, but I can't really do anything about it. So I just think there's a little piece of that makes you just that more irritated. There's a little piece of what LeBron James is dealing with where when he was in his prime, he didn't have it don't matter what you say. I'm the king. I can go score 60 tomorrow and make y'all, chill out. Now, is it as easy for him to do that? Yeah, probably not. So
not
that
without
probably
ice.
yeah. That little bit of where he's at in his career is probably like, you irritate me. Not only do my back hurt, but I got to hear you talking to. Nah, I'm just going to have to say something. I think there's a little part of that.
Right? now
I
I'm
think
gonna
there's a
fight.
little part
Right?
of that. Yeah, now I got to actually say something to you because you bother me.
Oh, that's too funny. I think one of the other things, man, is just the overall change, man, in the media's fight for eyeballs, right? Um,
Has
ESPN.
that always been there though? You think?
No, I mean ESPN was unadulterated, sports network, right? Like you
That's true.
turned on ESPN before you went, anywhere, right? Like before TMZ came and had TMZ Sports, right? You went to the number one leader for those, but now there's FS1, and then all of these streaming networks, right? Hulu has live sports. They send us the check. You have all these people, that have this kind of coverage. You have all of these shows because at first, the show lineup was like, okay, we got a 24-hour network now. How are we going to break up the day? Okay, let's kind of, create these shows. And they became the template for your sports stuff was just, news at 6, the news at 5, right? And it was your local perspective to where they took it on and as a global. So I think, I mean, for me, the perspective of there was a fight for eyeballs, right? And I think it goes, even if you look at the different media platforms, right? They're fighting for eyeballs. And you talk about the old, like the newspaper days that our parents went there first, right? We
Right.
had Uncle Larry on who was talking about box scores. Like after everything, he went, he would check the box scores. But now we don't even have to do that work, right? We have someone spitting it to us, and we hope that it's accurate, right?
Oh, that's true. I mean, when you were speaking, I was thinking about. I think the program was called maybe it was called the Sports Machine. It was I can't remember my man's name, but he was just standing up and he would go over the scores for Sunday. I remember I just used to watch that all the time. But that was my source of what happened in the rest of the league as a child was a
Right.
Sports Machine. And now, my daughter, if she really wanted to know the scores, she can find a post somewhere, and kind of figure it out. So I do. And then, I'm trying to, thinking back to how even SportsCenter was. I remember SportsCenter was, the highlight show. And then in the mornings it would be just repeating of the same show, and
Mhm.
somewhere down the line that changed to 24 hours of just talk shows, as opposed to just showing the highlights. I don't know where that changed because we kind of changed with it, but I guess that speaks to your point of the fight for eyeballs is a real thing.
And so then I think, and you hit it right on the head, it's like from that change of that fight for eyeballs and these media outlets, right? Then you had the fight for who was your anchor people, right? You went from people went to school. I was a journalist, I went to 5 years, and then I had to work, at an understudy at a local newspaper or my local station before I could, put my resume at ESPN. And then now you got guys coming off the court, or the field, and it's like, yo, I want to do this. Now, I'm not going to knock everybody, right? Because the NFL, we've had people on that talked about the NFL program that if you want to, be a journalist, now they're doing these certain steps because they're seeing it as a true trajectory. I'll try to say that 5 times fast after drinking all this tequila I've been drinking. There's a pathway for them, but so then it started becoming the infighting between the media outlets, right? So now you have these media people that yo, I spent, X amount of time at the Washington Post, I didn't cut my teeth. And then you got XYZ coming off the field and taking jobs and things like that. So I know that's kind of like media on media beef, right?
Nah, for sure. And I guess I don't know. I guess as a consumer, somewhere down the line, we've changed from wanting the facts to wanting to be entertained too. And I think that are maybe even more entertained than what the actual facts are. And that is leaked into every part of society at this point.
I mean, even worse than that, right? So it's so funny. I was watching some stuff. They had some Denzel clips, or Denzel, excuse me. His correct name is Denzel.
Oh, that's what his correct name is?
Yeah, his correct name is Denzel.
Is he Pastor Denzel now?
He's getting there because he be dropping a word. Well, one of the things they showed kind of like on these clips were him, and then how the media and what's going on in the media. He's like, man, right now, the media has a responsibility that they don't really kind of garner like they used to, and it's more about being first, not being right. So everybody wants to be the exclusive. I need to be the Woj, dropping Woj bombs, right? And I need to be the Adam Scheffner, Jarvis Shefties. So it's just like the dangers, kind of what you kind of alluded to is, of the society right now is I have to be first. I got to get it out. Like I saw this, even a world star, right? Like I mean, taking it off the hinge. It's like you're recording what's going on without knowing like the in-depths of it. You just want to be first. And that's dangerous.
It is. And it happens on the constant, to the point where now, I'm the one that gets fooled more than anybody with this is, like the NBA, there's like an NBA Central account and there's the NBA like Centel. And they look they look the same, but they have clearly different missions, so you can get lost in information pretty quickly.
Shout out to Black Twitter and the Black Adam.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But even the people that are on TV that have shows on ESPN, the FS1, they got to be careful too. At least they're whoever's researching, because they could pull something from the same source that we're pulling, trying to pull it quick, and it could be something from the Black Adam Schefter that may or may not be 100% factual. So, or even from the real Adam Schefter.
Hey, either way, right? Oh man, so I want to jump in and just kind of continues that evolution as we just kind of jump into how the media landscape is just changing. You're even starting to see these shows concentrated around. I guess I'll start on I'll start on the platform and then I'll go, I guess, to the second point I want to make. But first is just like the Manning cast, right? Like totally changing the way, like, okay, we know you had this, but what about this perspective from people who actually played it, but they're taking it and using it as this platform, but then they're also doing like a Tonight Show thing where they're bringing guests on to, just a whole different format, because we even Sue and Tarasi did that for the women's finals, Final Four and the finals. And that's been like an ongoing, I think this is like the second or third time that they've done that. So they're just continuously trying to say, okay, we got the game, but how can we put a twist on the game to kind of have people watch at our network versus the others? And you know, of course, put my business hat on. The more people on the network, the more ads they can sell, and you know, sponsorships and all that stuff just kind of run down the line. But just seeing that change, man, in the way you know those platforms are, is just definitely interesting. And like how many other sports are going to attempt to adapt to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I love it. I actually watch the if when I'm watching Monday night, I rather take in the Eli and Peyton version of it, just because to your point, you know, they I like hearing their perspective as former players and quarterbacks on situations and things like that. So I agree. Um, like anything, like you know, and maybe this is just media or sports media in particular. Do you get in trouble? And I'm asking you this: do you get in trouble if you're basing, I guess, a product off of the talent, right? You know, Peyton Eli, I guess, make the product, but is it the talent that you know, put your eggs in the basket, or is it just kind of like the platform of two athletes speaking to this level? Because maybe they can't speak it to the degree that Peyton and Eli can, or have that certain type of flair with it.
Yeah, man, I totally think it's the platform's playbook, right, or the platform's business model. Had a
Hmm.
mentor just was talking to me recently about like looking at people's business models, and that kind of lets you know. And I think for ESPN, I think it's both, right? Because they spend money on the Manning cast, excuse me, and things like that. But then you just hear mass layoffs, right? Like them cutting like some long time
A
people,
lot of talent, yeah,
a lot of talent that we've grown up with, and it's like, well, damn, like you know, that
yeah,
name
yeah,
must be,
for
and you know, they're doing it for various different reasons. Of course, you know, the bottom line is, of course, probably the main one. But I just think that you know, then you have Tony Romo came in and like shocked the world, right? Like how great he was, and people like you know think he's a wizard because he can call out stuff before and things like that. And Fox said, "Oh, well, shit, we want one of those. Let's go pay
sure.
Tom Brady." Right. So, and hope he can kind of give us those same returns. So I think it's really based on the most companies taking a little bit of both, because there's only so much money that you can pay. And then there's only so many people that are like at that level talent.
Right.
And then we can talk about, I guess, for me to transition, unless you have any other follow up, is like that's where a Stephen A. Smith comes in, right? Because now I think the other thing we've seen or I've seen in media is that you went from or you're going from a persona, you know, to someone being true or what's the word I want to say? Um a persona versus I guess a personality, right? Like
Sure.
when we're on here, we show our personality, right? We're not like extra doing certain levels to get the things. And I
Right.
think, you know, I was really not a Stephen A. Smith fan until I heard like a one interview where someone was sitting down with him and I talked to him. I was like, I get it. I can't say I 100% like it, but I get it, right? And a lot of what he does is a persona, right? Like he's doing all of that screaming and all that, you know, yelling and blah, blah, you know, just going like super tough. And it's got him to be the highest paid personality, you know, in sports. And then you have like Skip Bayless, right? Like Skip, it was once the crown, and like you know you hear other people until they got kicked off his show, that like respected him and said like how he's built his you know personality in sports. But then like for me, I look at a Pat McAfee who is like that's just him. Right, like he is just 100% authentically him. And like you know there's a couple people, you know, one guy that's over UNLV that played with him in West Virginia is just like, no, that's Pat, that's how he's always been. And you're getting his personality. And you know you still have that gear people that want personality, but sometimes you have personas that are so strong, you know, that they can do these different things, you know, as far as the media, like we're talking about what his past thing with LeBron is. So I don't know, what do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I just think there's a dangerous slope to our there's a dangerous part of where we're getting to where it's you're paying for the personality, and well, not necessarily personality but the persona, more than you know the actual meat and potatoes of what's going on. And the only
Right.
reason why I say that is like you know, and I shouldn't say that. I know there's still matter of fact, I know some that are cutting their teeth kind of the old school way, and they're doing some local news, and now they've ventured towards, ESPN, and, hopefully they're the next ones that's going to be leading a show or NBA show, or, one of the highly viewed, shows. Malika Andrews, I'm sure she had to kind of cut her teeth, maybe some of the old school way, a little bit, right? But I say that to say that, we got to a situation where we go from Stephen A. Smith, and now the next, I guess, level up. I don't know, like Kai Cenat is now, like, he was on like mainstream television, and shout out to him and what he's done. And I'm not taking anything away from his platform, what he's done. He's successful, but it's just like, to me, those are like, you know what I mean? That is very Old Testament and New Testament. It's like, whoa, how did these two worlds collide? You know what I mean? In the morning.
And that's what we talk about, right? So
Yeah.
Your initial point is the access. So now people have to go, and he has some power and control because he has a platform now. So that's why you have all these people doing podcasts. You know what I mean? You have because people have perspectives, and it's like, I want to control my narrative, right? And then it's like, he as a gamer and as an influencer, Bill, like, well, no, like, I like this part of sports, or I like it, and feels that like, well, I have an opinion too. So I want to start sharing that stuff. So I think that,
it gets to, I almost hate as like old head now that when somebody says like, I'm speaking my truth, I'm sharing my truth. It was like,
hold on, not share my truth. That goes back to some other stuff we talked about.
Facts. But just because you share your truth don't necessarily make it mean it's the truth. It is the truth. You know what I mean? That just because you're sharing your truth doesn't mean it's the truth, I guess, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So and then that leads me to, I guess, my last, oh god. I love it. I hope you guys are enjoying this. We're enjoying this. All right. So my last point I think I want to talk about is taking those different platforms and then those different people that access. And what you have now is I've even heard some people talk about, like, oh, I'm no longer with this network. There's other options, right? So there's people that have gotten kicked off or gotten, they talk about what happened with Jalen, right? They talk about what happened with just we could list, goes on and on about different people. And now it's like, oh, if I lost ESPN in the past, like, death sentence. Now I have all these other, mediums that I can kind of come on, stand up, and who will embrace me to tell my story and tell my message. So
That's
I think
true.
just like the level of,
That's true. Shout out to like to your point, like a Shannon Sharp, and I'm using like the ones that we all know, but he's got his own stuff, and then he's got like his day job,
money.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and he's like Arsenio Hall. is that who he is right now?
He's getting the top interviews, right? Like, it's kind of I don't even know what show to compare it to, but like, you got to stop and you got to talk to Uncle Shay now, right? All right, so jumping into it, man. I think you ready to do these lists, man? Let's just kind of jump through some of these lists, man, and maybe we'll have some fun. So, this is the 6th season. The perfect season. All the things that fall around the number 6. So MH and I put together just kind of some lists. There may be some little crossover. So we're just gonna shoot them out. We'll finish both lists and then kind of like maybe talk on them afterwards. We can talk during whatever. But I'm gonna start off with my 6 media beefs. All right, in no particular order. Just because I want to get them out there and time and all that good stuff. So since we talked about it, I'm gonna start with, because this is not the order I have it in, but the Uncle Shay Shaq beef. Right? I'm definitely putting that on my top 6 or for this show episode. And one, because we did a whole episode, and I forget now, I should have done, but we did a whole episode about it. I want to say in like season 4 or 5, where we talked about, and that was almost like a black on black. That was a media on media beef, because at that time they both were in the media, but Shay or Uncle Shay was talking about Shaq during his playing day. So it kind of went to that athlete versus media beef, but it was during a media on media crime time frame.
Okay, I like it. I like
it. To kind of pay homage to like some old school ESPN. You remember Jim Rome, right? Rome is burning. top show. so Jim Rome was kind of like the Skip Bayless before Skip Bayless. Like he was one of those people that guy got in there, talked his talk, and just had a good show, had top guests on there. And he had quarterback Jim Everett from the Rams at the time. And it's a hilarious. The show didn't get started. It wasn't at the end. It wasn't at the fifth block. It was like at the beginning. My man came on. He was standing on business. He's like, man, I hear what you've been saying about me. Right. And Jim Rome fucked around and found out, man. So Jim Rome was calling him Christy Rome. Chris Everett. Christy Everett.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, stop calling me that. You call me that one more time, we're gonna have to cut the commercial break. So Jim Everett fucked around, found out, and said it again, and got tossed off the stage. And you remember the old school, them bars used to come up like. Then we got technical difficulties, so I'm gonna throw that one up there as media. I love it. Okay. Let's see if I can stay. Somehow, I think because of our affinity for number 21, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, I had to find it. Does it make the list? Does it not make the list? He just got the bag for 54. I'm like, he's on the list. The day that he played two games, when he played NFL and then he played MLB, it was after the baseball game where the Atlanta, they had won the division. He had the old Tim McCarver.
Yep.
Is it Tim?
Yep.
Okay. So he had Tim McCarver was like saying he shouldn't do that. And then Deion's like, I showed him on the field, and then he dumped water on him, like 3 or 4 buckets of water on him.
You're a real man, Deion.
You're a real man, Deion. That's that that's that old man calling you a bitch. Excuse me, but that's that old man like, yeah, you're a real man, Deion. I'm sorry. So I think I'm on a roll, man. I got MH.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
You're a real man, Deion.
You're a real man, Deion.
All right. So I think I came out with my strong hitters. So I slipped this one in because he's the genesis of why we're doing this in a piece or part. Stephen A. Smith versus KD.
Okay.
And I put it as Stephen A. versus KD because they're like an on and again, off again marriage, right? So
all the time. Yeah.
So the original joint was, go ahead, give it to me.
I'm saying they do. They do for something else here soon.
Right, exactly, right. So the one that really always gets me, and like this is when I really started thinking Stephen A. was rubbing me the wrong way. But like when Stephen A. is like, oh, Kevin told me that he was doing this or that as far as a move or something like that. And then Kevin's like, man, I don't talk to him. Nobody talks to him. Like nobody in my family talks to him. Like, he's pulling this out his ass. And then he gets on TV and he does that. Man. For our audio audience, I'm in the screen all really tight. But he leaned in with, because his hairline was still fading at this time, right? So his hairline was real shiny because the lights was on. And he's like, I am not the one. Or just ways it like, oh, you do not want to start this beef with me. I am not the one. You don't want to make it. You don't want to make it. And it's like this whole tone threatening, like, come on, man, like, come and beat your ass. Anyway, so that's where it started off. That shit was just so funny. But like, he was like, I know your parent. Like, anyway, it got personal. So it goes on from that. Somehow they so-called squashed the beef. They were on a thing together. And then Stephen A. goes on another rant and he goes, man, the league is soft because of players like Kevin Durant, right? So this is like after they made up. And then they went back and then Kevin Durant's like, man, the NBA is going through shit because of shitty analysts like yourselves and what they do to the game and the negative stuff. And then the most recent was like this, I think this season, he called him a clown. He said, man, Stephen A. Smith is a fucking clown. And it's like back and forth. So that's my beef. I think that's going to continue to bring us glory. We've definitely done shows about Kevin, KD, the Slim Reaper, Mr. Cupcake himself. So I think we had to kind of get that one in there. All right. Let's see. Oh, wrapping it up, man. I think this is 5. Sherman versus Skip, man. So I love the fact that Skip Bayless, was kind of talking about Richard Sherman, and we gotta put all these clips on. So was talking about him, and then Rich was like, "Man, bro, I do life better than you." Like that's like when you tell somebody, like, "Man,
Yeah,
I
I'm
do
better at
life.
this than you. Yeah, that
Almost
was
it's like saying F your life, man. Like I do life better than you. Like, man, I'm good at this. Like I can flip quarters better. Whatever it is, like I am better at life. Yeah. So that was a shout out
shout
to
out to
Richard.
Skip on that too, because he said I'm not sure about that, but go ahead. Yes.
So he tried to come back, man. So like
Yeah,
that
no, he did. Yeah, shout out to
he did
Skip.
his thing, right? Because Skip is good at what he does, especially when he has those kind of those interactions. And then, like my last one is just because I think it rode while he was in the game, and then it's so funny to see him change in his dynamic after. Is my man Marshawn Lynch? Hey, I'm just here so I don't get fined. So I think that's my top six, no particular order. Maybe we rank them later, but no, man, the Marshawn thing was just so crazy about like how he just didn't want to talk to media. You know, all the stuff he recalled of what happened to him when he was in Buffalo, and then just everything he's dealt with, and then now, man, you see him in commercials. He's
Yeah,
doing the Thursday night, hosting that kind of thing. So
it is
it's good to see
incredible.
that beef that he had where he's like, look, I'm doing the bare minimum so I don't get fined, man, and protect your chickens.
I love it. I love it.
My man.
That,
All right, what you
that,
got for?
that's pretty tough, man. And we didn't, for anybody listening to this, we didn't discuss what our six were beforehand. So two of them we are definitely aligned on. We locked in on two. We locked in
Let's
on
go.
two.
Let's go.
So I'll start with the latest one you said, the Marshawn Lynch Super Bowl 2015. I'm just here so I won't get fined. And to
Classic.
answer 8 questions with that same response, impressive. On the questions being asked, also very impressive that he stayed consistent with his answer across the board.
No relevance for him to say I'm here made sense to not name question.
Not one. But yeah, I'm just here. I'll get
Classic.
fine. So that's the first one. The number 2 one that we had a lot was definitely Dion and You're a Real Man. If I had to rank them, those would probably be my number 1, just because of You're a Real Man, Dion. That comeback makes it the number 1. It makes it number 1. So we were on those. So those 2. Okay. The one that I had, I took it a little different angle here. Charles Barkley versus Michael Jordan. And I'm laughing saying this because they were both, obviously athletes. But the beef started when Charles Barkley kind of criticized Michael Jordan for how his Charlotte Hornets or Bobcats were doing on TNT. According to Charles, Michael Jordan called him back, said we thought we were supposed to be boys.
Still
Talking to, and they still don't talk. I don't know. The fact that Michael Jordan is competitive enough to be that petty, not to lose a best friend,
a best friend.
over
Like
over
those are
those.
best friends.
Yeah, that that has to make my list. Shout out to Air Jordan for being that consistent.
Oh, that's fucking hilarious.
The other one that I had, Jalen Rose versus Skip Bayless. Shout out to Jalen Rose, who had opportunities on the network. But one day he I think just got tired of Skip Bayless and his antics. And he 1.4, I think was the stats. Let me see. Yeah, 1.4 points a game. So Jalen Rose on maybe I don't even know if it was First Take. Yeah, it was First Take at the time. And
Probably.
Jalen Rose triggered Skip Bayless for going over his high school stats
That's
as a senior. And apparently Skip Bayless averaged 1.4 points a game in basketball as a senior on varsity. And Jalen Rose let the world know that. And I want to say, I don't know how much Jalen Rose was on the show after it.
Yeah.
So
Good night.
So that is my number 4 spot. Number 5, a little weird, but I kind of liked it. And it's funny, this Super Bowl gave us so much commentary. And I believe it's the same Super Bowl, but please somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Bill Belichick and the Deflategate. The press conference that he had opening the Super Bowl week, where he talked 10 minutes about air compression and the science behind how you inflate of football. I don't know if Bill Belichick does that as preparation. That's part of his greatness, or if he's just being really that petty, or does he think it's just hilarious at in a moment? But for him to spend 10 to 12 minutes of manifesto on air compression, filling up a football, and the science behind that, to me, that's had to be in my top 6.
That's a big middle finger right there. That's a big middle finger. And we on to Cincinnati.
And then you mentioned, and there were too many of Russell Westbrook's to point out just a few. But to answer for Russell Westbrook versus the media is forever going to give us comedy until the time that he's not playing anymore. He has been very consistent with his disdain for certain questions.
Yes.
And then maybe that's just part of his competitive edge. But even when he's answering, and one interview that I'm thinking of in particular is when he was answering for Steven Adams, and the reporter was like, hey, I had another question. He's going to ask. I'm asking him a question. He's going to answer my question, but you keep cutting me off. And he's like, no more questions. We're not answering no more questions. This is to local Oklahoma City sports beat, basketball team beat. Yeah. So Russell Westbrook had to make my list.
And the all-time meme too. The classic, like, what?
Yeah.
When he was responding from a question to the media.
Correct. Yes. So Russell Westbrook forever. I think he recently had something that was very interesting with the Nuggets media. So shout out to Russell Westbrook for constantly keeping us entertained.
Great list, man. And I like the Charles, because Charles could have went a couple different ways, right? Like,
yeah, he could have. But for you to lose your best friend over what you say on TNT is crazy to me. Forever. They haven't. He said it. This is in an article in 2023. They said they haven't spoken 10 years. For Michael Jordan to be that consistent of just cutting people off is incredible.
Like you said, man, on brand.
Yeah, it is incredible. Shout out to the major competitor. He's the GOAT for that.
I love it. I love it. So, man, as we see this media landscape continue to grow and change, and we're going to have different perspectives, like from our influence. I can't never pronounce the name, but from from him to the traditional TV, our local news. Everyone's looking to get viewership, clicks, be that go-to people. We're always going to see this dynamic. I think that dynamic of the athlete and the person that's giving that commentary, who's looking to give maybe constructive criticism, or maybe just, like I said, looking for clicks and views and things like that. I think we're always going to have that. So, MH, man, before we get out of here, man, any final thoughts?
No, man. Shout out and thank you for the opportunities that technology has given us. I mean, we get to say our opinion on a platform that is ours. And that might not have been possible some years ago and generations we were talking about. So, I mean, I think it's all love. I just think it's on our, the consumer or the customer to sift through some things and, spit out, what is it? Chew the meat and spit out the bones and, observe content that way. But all fun, man. I'm looking forward to this playoffs coming up. I'm sure there'll be some more commentary we can get for the NBA playoffs coming up, but all good.
Hey, as always, if there's we're gonna see if we can put together just like our full solid top 6 list and put some of those out on social. If there's ones that we missed or that you think would make your top 6, man, share it in the comments, man. So we'd love to hear what your top 6 interactions. Maybe you agree with some of the ones that we had. And like always, man, we thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you enjoyed it, please share it. Even if you don't enjoy it, please share it. We definitely want to continue to get the media and the message out there on our platform. We drop new shows every Thursday, so you can see us anywhere where podcasts are played. Follow us on IG, Twitter, Facebook. We're on TikTok. We're everywhere, man. We worldwide. But just as always, man, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Look. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Sue me, I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to